It is Cannabis News. I'm your host, Joe Klare. September 10th, 2019. The show, as always, is presented by the Marijuana Times. You can find us at marijuanatimes.org. Click the video tab there to find this show, or peruse all of the great articles that can be found there as well. Check out our social media links. Follow us or friend us or whatever it is you have to do on that particular social media platform. Go do all that. It's great. marijuanatimes.org. Today we're talking about vape illnesses, reported vape illnesses, mostly from bootleg THC cartridges. It seems that toll is rising when it comes to the illnesses. Also, the Americans for Safe Access organization put out a guide to medical cannabis for medical marijuana patients who travel throughout the United States or even within their own state, and a little controversy in Massachusetts between cannabis companies and that state's Adopt a Highway cleanup program. Yes, controversy. All that is coming up. But first, of course, Cannabis News is brought to you by Natureside, nature-side.com, and their organic, all-natural pesticides. Grow safe and poison-free. Don't use harmful chemicals on what you're growing. Be regulatory compliant in the state that you're growing in. All of these things are possible through the power of Natureside. Nature-side.com, a proud sponsor of Cannabis News. Thank you, Natureside. This first story from marijuanatimes.org by Foster Winans. According to the CDC, this is from a few days ago, vape illness toll now 450, mostly young males using THC. Center for Disease Control reported that the epidemic of mysterious lung-damaging illnesses linked to vaping has grown to 450 victims across 33 states, including a third death as a patient in Indiana. It's more than double the victims reported in the previous week. In a conference call with reporters, health officials said that the average age of the victims is 19. They mostly were male, and the majority have reported using black market THC oils. I'm not going to beat the proverbial dead horse here because I've talked about this a few times. I've related my story with these things, and we've covered it quite a bit in print on marijuanatimes.org and here on the show. But I will reiterate that as they study what the problem is, a lot of the problem seems to be this vitamin E acetate. There's been a common denominator in a lot of these illnesses. Don't buy bootleg vape cartridges. You don't know what's in them. If you get sick, well then you've been warned. Especially if you're watching me right now or wherever you're watching this, because I'm warning you. Don't do it. If someone's like, oh bro, I got this THC cartridge. It's from, it's Blue Smurf from Dank Vapes or whatever. We got the packaging, $40. No, it's fake. It's fake news. It's bootleg. It could make you sick. As I said, I kind of lucked out in the few weeks that I was checking these out back in the day. Back in the day, like a year ago. But in terms of this story and how fast this thing is moving over the last couple of years, it is back in the day. And I didn't feel great, And that feeling went away when I stopped using them, and I never went back to them. So, buyer beware, as they say. As I just said. Because I just said buyer beware. See how that works? This next story. safeaccessnow.org/travel. If you want to go check it out, of course, it's linked in the description of this video. It's the Americans for Safe Access Medical Cannabis Patient's Guide to U.S. Travel. As ASA points out, there are currently 47 states and 4 territories with some form of medical cannabis laws in the United States, but the rights and privileges they extend to medical cannabis patients vary among them. As a result, patients who travel for personal or employment reasons can find themselves unsure as to how to access medical cannabis in an unfamiliar place. This guide is a very handy guide, if you will, to doing so. Americans for Safe Access, the largest national member-based organization promoting safe and legal access to cannabis for therapeutic use and research, has created the Medical Cannabis Patient's Guide for U.S. Travel. This guide will help patients understand the laws in the states and territories in which they are eligible to obtain medical cannabis so they may do so safely and legally. Of course, they say before traveling, it is important for patients to review the most up-to-date information for the jurisdictions they will be visiting, as laws and regulations are subject to change. Also, if you're driving, you may want to check out the jurisdictions you'll be driving through or traveling through as well for what their laws are if you're planning on bringing medical marijuana with you. Of course, laws protecting patients vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction and in some cases among counties within a state. No matter what jurisdiction you live in, medical cannabis patients always must be aware that they are violating federal law when in possession of cannabis, because cannabis is a Schedule 1 controlled substance. According to federal guidelines and federal laws, they cover other safe sections here, like safeguarding medical marijuana patient rights, using a retail dispensary, storing your cannabis, helpful tips for travel. Among the things the ASA encourages you to do include maintain a current doctor's recommendation, keep your medical cannabis ID card and/or a copy of your doctor's recommendation on your person at all times. Give another copy of your recommendation or medical cannabis ID card in your luggage when you are traveling. Memorize your physician and lawyer's phone numbers to write them down, and keep them with their medical cannabis ID card or doctor's recommendation. Also contact dispensaries in their destination jurisdictions prior to travel to determine whether appropriate cultivars and products can be obtained. They also cover planes, trains, automobiles, TSA rules, things of that nature. Some states have medical marijuana reciprocity. I'll get it. I'm a professional speaker. If you can believe that. Reciprocity. Also, they give you access to medical cannabis by jurisdiction and go to the various states that have medical marijuana. So if you are a traveling medical marijuana patient, you will want to check that out. It's linked in the description of this video, as are all the stories that I talk about. This last story from the Boston Globe. Can marijuana companies adopt a highway? I know that's actually a controversial thing that must be discussed. Eager to build brand awareness in an industry subject to tight advertising and marketing restrictions, 6 cannabis firms have purchased a total of 16 sponsor a highway signs across Massachusetts, according to the state's Department of Transportation, which supervises 2 corporate vendors that manage the program. There's a problem, though. The simple designs are missing a series of warnings that the Cannabis Control Commission requires on every advertisement by a licensed marijuana company. In other words, if you advertise the marijuana company in Massachusetts, you got to have some disclaimers, and the little adopt a highway signs don't have enough room for all those disclaimers, so it's creating a conflict that adults in Massachusetts are actually spending their time on. Dispute comes as the industry tries to navigate the often confounding set of restrictions on advertising in the state's legal cannabis industry. Marijuana companies and state regulators are struggling to balance the expansion of the industry with the demands of public health advocates who fought to restrict ads for tobacco and alcohol for decades. Someone later in the article points out that Beth Waterfall, a marketing specialist who works with marijuana operators, said, obviously the regulations are really stifling. The people with money to burn can take more risks putting up billboards, and if an enforcement action comes about, it's not that big of a loss for them. And meanwhile, she added, quote, you have box trucks going down the highway with giant pictures of vodka bottles, which is indeed true. I've seen those trucks in my area as well. During recent hearings on proposed changes to the agency's rules, marijuana companies questioned the advertising regulations, denouncing the length of the required warnings and a ban on T-shirts, among other provisions. Those evil marijuana T-shirts luring youths to partake of the devil's lettuce since time immemorial. My store is going to be called the KG Collective, and I can't sell a T-shirt that says KG Collective. I just think that's absolutely stupid, said Marcus Johnson Smith, an entrepreneur who was working to open a marijuana store in Cambridge. I don't see why we can't create a responsible advertising framework that allows companies to grow and diversify their products. The reason, of course, being something we've talked about on here many, many times, the common belief among bureaucrats and officials and lawmakers and politicians that marijuana is a very dangerous, volatile, harmful substance that needs to be regulated and restricted at all costs, which includes advertising, right down to, in some cases, they want to regulate THC content, the amount of hours a store can be open, how many stores there can be. There's a whole laundry list of things that need to be regulated and restricted and have tight, strict oversight from our benevolent government to make sure that, a kid doesn't go down a highway and see that a cannabis company is cleaning it up, that portion of the highway. Because what would they think? I mean, how do you explain to a child that a legal marijuana company is spending money to help part of the highway be clean? I don't know. I don't have to have that talk with my children. to sit down and have that awkward cannabis companies adopting parts of the highway to keep clean. Oh, that's a talk. I'd rather talk about the birds and the bees than have to explain the adopt a highway regulations to my children and why cannabis companies are allowed out in the open. They sell legal products. Now they're legally adopting a highway. When does it end? Anyway, it's just a dumb. Like I said, there's adults. There's a lot of adults thinking about this problem right now in the state of Massachusetts. What are we going to do about this? How are we going to fix this problem? These companies are giving money to keep the highway clean. How dare they? Anyway, continue to keep you updated on that hard-hitting story among many others and update you on new ones as time goes on. We're here 5 days a week on Cannabis News, marijuanatimes.org. Search the Marijuana Times on YouTube and find us there. Search the Marijuana Times on Apple Podcasts if you want to check us out on the audio version. Thank you to Natureside, nature-side.com, and their organic, all-natural pesticides. Thank you to all of you for watching and listening today. We'll see you next time right here on Cannabis News.